So when I do the work, it's coming from a whole nother level of passion and commitment. I truly feel like the work that I've done within the communities of Houston, you know, learning the skills to articulate yourself when you have certain issues, knowing how to address trauma that you never dealt with before, having certain particular conversations with people that are difficult to have conversations with, but finding a medium to be able to do that. These are what the restorative practices that have helped me do.
It's always something.
Three.
You don't have to actually, because he's not walking at the door anymore.
Oh, I know. You're right. So, cool. All right. So in 2015, I uprooted my family, my daughter and my wife, up to Houston, Texas, not ever coming here ever before or visiting. I took a risk, and I came, got a job with a charter school well known out here called Yes Prep. While I was at Yes Prep, I was a seminar teacher, high school readiness teacher, and that's where everything began. I learned so much from teaching those kids and learning from those kids, and that's where the empathy started building and me learning how to be coming into my own as a teacher and educator. And the students, while I was there that first year in 2015, 2016 at Yes Prep Golfton, the kids inspired me in my seminar class to actually start my speaking career full-time. I mean, not full-time, but professionally, while I was still teaching. They heard about what I was doing, and then they kept on pushing me and telling me to keep going. So from there, I remember just trying my hardest just to find a team. I thought right away, I'm good at this, so let me stay in my lane. I speak, and let me stay where I'm good. Right now, the mission was finding people around me to help me build this brand and this business with things that I couldn't do well. So along the way, from then on, I started meeting people and working with people from time to time, like video production and like photography and things like that, things that I naturally wasn't good at, editing and stuff like that. And I kept on working with different types of people, but nothing ever really stuck. Right. And then in 2019, this past summer, in June, I quit my job at Kipp Houston High School and decided to go full time with my business. And I remember not knowing exactly how I was going to get it done. I remember I was talking to DeAndrae, and I think I had texted him about, yo, I'm going full time. If there's any like opportunities out there with teachers or school leaders that need restorative programming, I built a curriculum. And then I remember him hitting me up and like, yo, like, yeah, you should come through. I got a podcast, you could be on the show and everything like that. And that's where it started. He introduced me to Trey, which is our producer, and we just built an organic relationship there. And, you know, it was all about timing. And I heard this before, but it really stuck with me ever since I heard it. And then life started happening and everything started working to prove it, which is, you know, when you decide to do something, the universe, the world starts working for you and moving things out the way and opening doors for you. But it's you have to be able to walk into those doors, you know, before the window closes on you. And for me, I think this whole experience with APR, Always Press Record Media production, was timing, right? I seen there was a window, and I could have said no. I could have said, I'm busy, I don't want to do a podcast or whatever. But I decided to put myself in that space and built a relationship with this team at APR, and it just growing to what it is now is like amazing. And this is why I want to bring this to the show. And I thought, because I hear a lot of people like, hey, like, how do you build a team? Oh, you're lucky you have a team. How do you do it? And honestly, there's a lot that goes into it, but like, you just don't know. It's all taking a risk and just going and figuring it out along the way. And I wanted to get into detail with my team and tell you guys where we're at and how we got here. So without further ado, I wanted to have my my boys here introduce themselves and tell you guys what it is they do for the team, and how we got here. So we'll go with you first, Trey.
Oh man, I'm the guy who's never on camera because DeAndrae is always on camera. I'm the other half of APR. What most people don't realize is that APR started off with 4 people, 4 partners.
Yeah.
Is now 3 partners for most. I guess you would say. It worked for Rockefeller. It should work for us. And the real question was, somebody once asked me when I said that, they were like, "Well, who's Jay-Z?" And the answer, actually, believe it or not, is DeAndrae. DeAndrae was the first person to actually make the transition to being on a podcast to hosting his own podcast, and that's actually. The company itself was born many different variations, but what we are now is essentially, it was started because we were in what is now Studio B, I guess we would call it. And we were sitting there and he said, before the show that we were on, and that we were both on together, "Hey, I have an idea for a show." And when he said he had an idea for a show, I said, "All right, when we're going to do it." And I guess I didn't give him enough time to really pause and reflect
Back out.
or back out of it. And that's when we went into it. And it's actually pretty funny because him and I guess we kind of both jumped into a scene that we were already connected to by many different people. Now that we're established, we realize like how we do rank with many of our friends who are actually doing it as well, because the first person who came over to actually do the sit down was Just Fresh Media of Unpacking fame, many different ways, because what happened, long story short, we ended up buying expensive cameras, but nobody knew how to use it who was still left from the original crew. So Just Fresh literally came over and like explained to us that it shuts off at 29 minutes, all the different things. But while he was there, he asked me, what do we do to edit? Right. And the person, one of our original founders, he was actually editing everything through Premiere Pro. And so me not knowing, which is very, very funny looking back now that we're like a year plus in, like I didn't know what that was. And so as you build in the team, everybody has their own goals, their own lanes, their own aspirations. Mine, because mine changed as the company changed. I went from never wanting to touch the camera to having to touch the camera to having to figure out how to edit. And then along the way that we were able to grow, because we did that originally. I think what we did was that we grew really, really fast, right? Because that's what you do as an entrepreneur. You try to grow. And the thing is that, and one of the things that I admire about you and the way that you're going through is that you have a mission. You have a clear mission. And for us, I don't know in the beginning if we even really knew. I think I didn't realize I was a producer until episode 7 of his show. Because that's what I kind of like to do. Right? Like I'm not the best director. I'm not the best like cinematographer and editor.
You're getting there.
I think that you gotta like you always say, you gotta do the work, right? Whether it's restorative justice on yourself, right? Whether you're doing the work on yourself or with your project or with your own goals and your own aspirations, you gotta do the actual work. And so along the way, DeAndrae, who was just the guy who was like, "Hey, I want to do a podcast too," became my partner. Because during that 352 plus that we did that first year of just videos, it was literally like you would come over, you would hang out, and we're cutting up videos, we're looking at videos, or we're doing stuff, or I'm watching YouTube trying to figure it out, because I went to YouTube University to figure out all the things that we now do.
That number 352 sounds
crazy.
When we were doing it, maybe not, but now, like, that's a lot.
Well, looking back, and it was only until we were filming something the other day, and like it was when you were down and we were over, like, and you came up a whole bunch of times, because like, it was the missing glue to our team was in that conversation that we were having, that you should have been there, because it was that 352. And the reason why I remember it so clearly is because we were trying to get, I remember when it was at 100. We were at 100, man. I was like, man, if we ever get to 100 shows, man, we got everything going. We'll know everything we need to know. One day, count them all up, we're at 100 shows. Okay? If we get to 150, we can just keep it going to 150. We will be good. Yeah. I remember having this conversation with DeAndrae, because it was like we had expanded up to 15 different shows on the roster. And because of that growth model that we were doing, that we didn't really have a clear mission, right? So we were doing some comic book stuff, some unboxing stuff. It was like, basically, if you want to do it on YouTube, you can join us. Yeah. And that's kind of where, as life got in the way, right? Because that's what happens in the course of a year, is that there are times when, like, that's not your priority anymore. And along the way, when life would get in the way, we would help each other through it. We would keep the business going. When I was at my lowest in this whole thing, he kept bringing in people. Because what DeAndrae is he's head of outreach now. That's his title. Yeah. But he's actually, he's outreach. He's the guy who stimulates business. He's the guy who represents. If somebody needs to go. And it's funny, because the day that he became a partner, he doesn't even realize it. When he officially became a partner is when he did the APR marathon. Now, not everybody knows what it is, but one day he'll have a T-shirt, and maybe you might be the next one to complete it. And here's the reason why. All right. So for autism awareness, which is very rare and dear to our hearts, right? That's one of our original missions, was for autism awareness, was he went on to a morning talk show, a morning show. It was a morning TV show. So he actually showed me what we ended up building. And like, because I was going, oh, they just need this and this and this. Oh, that's a set. We can get a set going on. And the next thing was, after we did that, he did the radio show, then guest on somebody else's show, was the guest star there, and then did his own show, all within one day. That is the APR marathon. Gotcha. And so once he did that, I knew that, like, everybody could tell you on the group chat, I'm bigging this dude up because I know he's tired. I know he's tired. I just heard him on the radio, and I can just go, man, as somebody who's heard my boys do their work, like that, he's running on fumes. And then now he's coming over to the studio, and we got to ramp back up again, and then we got to ramp back up again for his show. Yeah. And so
because we were doing back-to-back shows.
It was back-to-back. Literally, the only downtime was the commute to each individual place.
Well, with that, segue into because we said a lot about DeAndrae there. We talked about a lot about DeAndrae. So DeAndrae, I want you to talk about how was the APR thing for you, like the intro to it, and what was like how it happened from your perspective.
All right. My boy Pert, who we known each other since 90s. We were living in Lakeside. Back in the 90s. He moved all over the place. We reconnected maybe about, I want to say maybe 10 years ago. Okay. Like 10 years ago. And we worked out together. Gotcha. Like, we worked out to the gym. We went to the gym a lot. Like, me and him, we would meet there almost 3-4 times a week. We were going hard for a minute. And you know, and at the gym, that you know, when you know, you're working out over and over, you know, we get to having these conversations and stuff like that. And one day he was like, "Yeah, man, we finna do a podcast. You should come through." I was like, "All right." Never really paid attention. Well, I guess like I was confused because like the podcast that I only knew was the Serial series on Pandora.
Okay.
And I'm thinking podcast, man, like telling a story. You know what I mean? Like I'm just listening to someone record themselves talk. That's it.
Yeah. So you had no idea what podcast.
Yeah, like coming together and talking like as like, you know, like this. And so but I mean, of course, like after we started, then I, you know, started like, you know, going on YouTube and just seeing like different examples of other podcasts.
Yeah.
And, you know, you got people that do a podcast about themselves. You got 2-man, 3-man, 4-man. Seen live ones with audiences. I mean, podcasts have just expanded. I mean, at this point, it's like anybody who has any bit of a following, you might as well do a podcast.
Might as well.
Because you're just going to have that many people listening to you.
True.
You're going to, you know. And also, it was like, you know, with me, him, Trey, I think it was Pat. I think Aaron was there for the first few.
Yeah, he was there.
So that was sometimes 5 in this room. But you get used to it real quick.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, because we were doing it every week. And it was like...
It was the original.
I mean, we probably went 8 to 10 without even missing a week.
Before Perk, you didn't know Trey.
No.
So you met Trey through Perk.
Because this is where he was talking about when
he was coming over here
to do a
because I was the only one who had the space.
Well, then I think someone dropped off. I don't know who the person is, but someone dropped off. He said, "You want to show up because I'm, you know, whoever he could."
That is right. What happened? Because he randomly said because he was like, "Who wants to do a podcast?" And I was like, "Yeah. When do you want to do it?" And because I had heard the Joe Budden podcast.
Okay.
And so I was like, "Oh, so that's a podcast?"
Got you.
Yeah.
And okay. And for everyone, like I wasn't a part of the founding people of APR at all. I came in much later, so that's why I wanted to give an intro.
After a year.
Yeah.
It was after a year. We had figured out a lot of things at that point.
Yeah, and for me, and I think it's beautiful that y'all brought that up because, as Trey has said, like he didn't want to be behind the camera. He didn't know anything about editing, this and that. And once he was put in a position, he did his own homework and research and started growing and building his thing and being good at stuff. And he's everything that you see on this podcast with the videos, the podcast on all streaming areas, like that's him figuring it out and getting better each and every time. And then with Dre, like him coming to just being invited, and I'm guessing from what I'm hearing from time to time, you're the one that stayed the longest, right?
Yeah.
Basically.
Yes, that is the best way to put it.
He might have stayed a little bit longer.
No. I mean, like from that time when you got brought in. Okay.
Wow, that's absolutely true.
Yeah. So I think it's great for people to even see that, like how this whole partnership happened. Because when I came in, like I said earlier, I was looking for like something stable, like a team. Like I was like, I'm going full time. I made my mind up. This is it. Now, I remember Dre had gave me. We were on the phone and he had said, just come through. Similar to like how he was brought into here. And but I had the mission on, like he had told me about Trey. And he was like, yo, he does podcasts, we could do videos or whatever. And there's some potential like work here. So I came in here with the mindset, okay, let me see what the vibe is. And I remember coming in this room in particular and seeing everything around. It was like, it was just like, because there's so much going on and you see all the Black Panther comic books and this and that, but there's a bunch of pieces that you have to ask, what does that mean? Like the tree that I seen up there or other things in here. And I'm like, yo, there's like a working project right here. And I just felt like, you know what I mean? And then I started talking to Trey and we vibing in conversation, like what is the mission, what we trying to accomplish? And I was like, okay, I like the vibe. I like where we're going. I already knew how I wanted, what kind of mission I was on, like what kind of path I wanted to go. And I guess that's what you were talking about earlier, like having like a purpose.
Having a purpose, because we didn't have one, as we've explained. We didn't know what podcasts were. Part of our early days of running a business was the fact that, you know, we bought equipment. And so it was like, all right, the goal of the year one was literally to pay it all off.
Yeah.
Right. And because you're making an investment in yourself. That's the reason why we went growth. Yeah. And we went 352 and we like pushed, and along the way we learned things. Like you coming now was after I had burned myself out, right? Creativity was gone. DeAndrae was like, man, don't worry about it. Everybody who's on the line waiting for us, you got it. Focus on you, get it on back. And I appreciate that, by the way. Just because that's the thing about having a business and being an entrepreneur that nobody tells you, is that, you know, there's a lot of no's along the way to very few yeses.
Absolutely.
And then yeses that matter are even few and far between. And so, yeah, we had a whole bunch of business. We had a whole bunch of clients. People were loving this, you know, we were figuring it out. We were figuring out our workflows as we were going. Things that now we just do like clockwork. Yeah. We had to understand, like that first client who said, can you turn this around in 24 hours? Well, yeah, we did it. We accomplished the task. We got the client. But let me just tell you, I'm a lot better with more than 24 hours. Right? So, because that's creativity, man. Like, between what I do during the day, which is IT, right? And so, like, I do, this is the problem, this is how I fix it, right? That's how I have conditioned myself, even though we've talked many times. I started on as a musician and an artist and a poet, and then I became an IT guy for the family and for the career and whatnot, right? And so along the way, I had to figure out how I do things and how other people do things, right? So the way I do things, I'm very much where I don't know until I sit down. And once I focus my attention and my efforts, then I can deliver the best, right? But like if I'm split attention, I can't do it. That's the reason why DeAndrae is outreach and I do this, right? And it's because I rather be here for like 6 hours watching a progress bar, because I do that during the day anyway, so it's easy for me, right? And so that doesn't bother me. But going out there, dealing with people, small talk, trying to figure out if their purpose is true, because that's the thing that I was saying that I appreciated once you came along, was that the mission became clearer, right? So at first, the mission was, let's be on YouTube, right? Let's just be honest what it was at the time. It was, let's be on YouTube like everybody else, right? And then at one point in time, it was to make APR HBO like, right? That was the original pitch to everybody. We're doing TV, right? And I still say we're making TV because that's how I approach it now, right? So what we do is that we make online TV because the model's changing, right? Who's really turning on their TV anymore when they have their phone more often? That's what they turn on, right? So we make media for the new frontier, but we try to do it over at the TV quality that we thought was professional, right? Because that was the only thing for us growing up, was that was the difference between somebody who had a camera and somebody who was on TV. Is like those people were professional. They knew, right? And then one day, you know, after watching enough videos, after making many mistakes, and it's all online, we kept everything up from the vault. It's all on always press record. And it's like, once you see the mistakes as they happen, right? we got better and it became more stable. And so when mistakes happen or things go wrong or the phone is over recording in slow motion, like we know how to fix it quickly to keep the production line going.
Yeah. And it's because when I was coming in, I wasn't even looking to do a podcast.
Mm-hmm.
I was more looking like to find a media team, like to do it. Because I had like a track record of having videos, like commercial type videos where I'm doing B-roll and I'm speaking and have like motivational stuff come up. And I was like looking to continue that because I couldn't have someone that was consistent with me. Right. And then coming in here and like I didn't want to do a podcast. And once again, Dre like kind of pushed me to do the podcast. Right. And I was like, I don't know if I want to be on camera that often, like or behind the mic that often. And then actually like it kind of aligned, right? For me, it was like, you know what? I'm always talking about let's walk the walk. Let's make this like a practice. So like I'm practicing. This is me taking my jump shots constantly. So like doing the work. So like if I'm going out to these big speaking engagements and I'm going to schools and interacting with students and doing the work, why don't I just have a place where I can practice it weekly? Like I just go someplace and then like practice my craft and what I'm talking about. So that's how I'm taking this podcast. And it was by chance. And like what I was saying earlier, timing is everything. I just keep on pushing and then it'll happen. Like I thank DeAndrae for telling Trey to stick with it. And then a couple months later, I come through the door and I'm like, yo, I got the mission. I want this. I want that. Boom, boom. And then it's like a perfect partnership. And you never know. Like I didn't know this type of team would exist this soon. Like I quit my job in June and by August, was it August? 2-3 months later, like I have like a legit team that and we 15 minutes away from each other living wise, which is ironic. Like you never know. And
you never know what's right around the corner.
Exactly. Just keep pushing it and putting yourself in spaces like that. Now the question I wanted to ask y'all before APR, Jay, we start with you. Like, did you have any experience with like, what was your experience with like teams, being a part of a team, whether it was at work or like another thing that you were doing on the side? Like, how was your experience with working with people as a team?
Because I was extremely selfless. Right, like it really didn't happen to much recent in which I just started thinking, okay, you need to look out for you. Like you need to go get what you want versus always looking to be a part of something. You know, like creating something versus being part of someone else's creation, right? And that's just with all aspects, not like just with media or like, you know, anything like that. So being a part of a team wasn't hard for me. It was pretty easy. It's funny, like my the persons of our department at work, you know, she sent the email and she was like and people in our department and kind of like just saying little things about each one of us and what she's thankful for us and all that. And she was she had got to me and she was like, I work well under pressure and I'm always reminding her not to make like decisions based on emotions. And I think right there that kind of helped me through team because like Trey was saying, you know, throughout a year, a lot changes. And if you don't have someone that just can say, just like, we're just gonna still think about the goal. You know, some of them changes they can break a team down. You know what I mean?
For sure.
And and it, you know, each team goes through it. Like it just like she said, like it would. Success sometimes is measured on how well you handle the failures and the adversity. And so, again, what helped me is like, I want to say like not getting too close, but not involving my emotions too much in it. Even if I am fully invested in it, you know what I mean? Like I said, through the rough times, it's being able to lean back on the fact that I still got to find the next Carlos. You know what I mean? Like, that's still my mission, no matter what's going on. All right, my goal is to find.
Was that when everything was going rough for you at the beginning? That was that was on your mind. Like, let me find the next person. To come in.
Well, like Trey said, we had different directions like throughout the year. Like, so the goal was changed. No, not even just the show. We're talking about like the as a whole, right? We went from we need this to then a few months later, now we need this. Now we need this, right? And it's not like need as in material wise, like, we're going in this direction. Okay, now I think we need to go in this direction.
Okay,
now we're right. So when the direction changes, of course, the goal changes. So at first, it wasn't necessarily, find the next person to help build. It was more like, let's just find the next guest that's going to give us a big view thing.
Because it was a lot when we started, right? It was how do we keep it going from week to week, right? So like just early days, it was how do we get content, right? I never I still didn't want to be on camera for my own show. I still don't have my own show. How did I get away with that?
Yeah,
DeAndrae has had a few, and
he's trying to play. The other day after I did the interview on Mangrove, he had to sit down for like 15 minutes and do a clip with him in it. I was like, you stashing? I know he got 12 shows in the lock right now.
We do have a lot of stash.
I know he got a bunch.
We do have a vault. DeAndrae knows we have a vault of a lot of content that people don't see.
Monday that y'all got a vault. I was like, this guy's slick. He's slick. I know he's stashing over there.
Well, it's so at first when we first got this is what I'm still saying about the mission. We didn't have one at first. At first it was week to week. All right, how do we get everybody back every Wednesday, right? Yeah. To keep our main show going. That was at the time. All right, how do we pay off the cameras? All right, we're going to need to get people in there. All right, we got way too many people who are for free, and we don't have any hours to fit in anybody who wants to pay us.
Yeah.
What are we going to do now with the free ones? What are we going to do now with the paid ones? How are we going to balance life, right? Because what we were actually doing is that we were making all these, we were establishing careers and stars and personalities, and once you're invested, you're invested. Yeah. We were having this discussion today about one of them, and it's like, once you're invested, you're invested. You watch the timeline. You are now a part of their history.
Yeah.
And so we were just doing everything, right? We were those guys. And then somewhere along the way, Mangrove community came into our lives. Through DeAndrae's connections. Once again, it was one of his sit downs. I think it was your episode 4, and of the sit down, and which actually turned out to be episode 7 because one of my mistakes again.
That was just talking about last time. Okay.
I accidentally moving it over and having all things in mind, no system whatsoever. I deleted the footage on one camera, so we just didn't put it out because our whole thing was, let's just give it the highest quality possible, right? Even though we're learning and we'll take the bumps and the criticism, but let's try our best. And if it's not there, we're just not going to do it, right? And so once we got more and more into Mangrove and we got involved with the politicians and the different community aspects, with the THAR Organization for Autism Awareness and whatnot like that, we have now become a purpose-driven network, I would say. We don't release everything. We're no longer trying to get the most clicks, right? Really, now when DeAndrae brings somebody to me, he tells me what the goal is and why it's important that we need to invest our time and effort into it. Because everybody has their own lane. Everybody has their own purpose. Everybody has their own mountaintop that they're trying to climb, right? For us, at one point in time, it was to have fun. At one point in time, it's to make the business viable. And now we have a business, and now it's just, keeping the day-to-day open. But along the way, we met people who were trying to be stars for different reasons, I would say, right? And so now the roster, even though we can trim back considerably, right, and reevaluate like the content that we were putting out, it's more now APR kids because we're trying to educate the kids and make them feel like a very safe place. We're trying to do Always Press Record now is more corporate accounts as well as like podcasts and stuff. But when we put out content, we're putting out content with an actual clear mission of putting out purposeful content.
Yeah.
Right? We're not talking about current events and what's going on with this and that. Because we don't want to chase the wave, right?
Yeah.
Once you find us, you'll find us, and then you'll realize, man, we got great content here because great content is happening. And that took us a while to get there, to be honest with you. I mean, it took a while. It took DeAndrae bringing so many people with purpose. Well, like I used to say during our conversations, I was like, man, everybody's in transition that you're bringing to me, right? And he was like, well, aren't we all? And once he said that, I had to shut up. It was one of those conversations where like, all right, you've laid down the gauntlet as partner. I will do my part, right? And it's because, we all are in a state of transition, even APR as it is, right? So I can't be mad that people don't know what their mission is yet. I can't be mad that I see it already, but they aren't there yet, right?
Yeah.
A lot of being a producer is earning trust, whether it's from your director, from your light guy, your sound guy, your talent, as they say, right? It's all about trust.
Yeah.
And along the year that DeAndrae and I have been together, from not knowing each other from Adam, right? To now I call him up and I say, my neighbor has a white school bus. We need it for filming. I know it might sound weird. And he goes, no, that's not weird. Let me know what we're going to do. And it's like, if you can take that phone call after a year of knowing somebody, and it's just ultimate trust, that's ultimate trust.
That's what's up.
Right?
Yeah, so basically, every team needs a DeAndrae. So make sure you...
No, you got to have somebody you trust. You got to have somebody... Like you run CJ Motivation, right? Yeah. But you have your wife that you trust, that you can bounce ideas off.
For sure.
If somebody comes in with a new deal, you got to be able to understand your pluses and your minuses, right? So that you can do it.
Yeah.
Me coming out, right? I said DeAndrae and I, we weren't partners to begin with.
Yeah.
Right? It was just I was the guy who was going to run APR.
Yeah.
And then APR became something because DeAndrae did the work, right? And while I'm sitting in here, I'm over here cutting and staring over at a television for months on end, right? DeAndre's over here going. And he's over here like, man, let me tell you about Trey. Let me tell you about that. And it's like, we had a conversation, I guess it was not too long. It was probably our anniversary of being APR. We had a conversation where we realized, man, we have different lanes, right? Like I used to try to get DeAndrae to film everything with me, but that's not what he wants to do, right? Just because I did it and I never had an inkling to it, well, I started enjoying it.
Yeah.
So it's like, that's now my lane.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not about having the DeAndrae, but you should have somebody with those qualities that you don't have so that you can get to success, man.
And I think that's the biggest thing, because I think everybody tries to find a group of people that are exactly the same way they are. And that doesn't necessarily work all the time. You can't have everybody trying to do the same thing. You've got a team full of shooters.
Yeah.
Who's going to pass the damn ball?
Yeah,
you know
that's real, man.
You know what I mean? Who's going to rebound the ball? And I use that analogy a lot. Like, it's just, you got to find people that play different roles or do things that you don't do well. And that's okay, and being okay with that. And this is exactly what it is. Like, coming in, like, I was trial and error for so long. Like, it was going on 5 years. I started 2015. And I was just like searching, getting people to do videos with, trying to get editors, trying to get photographers, trying to get people to like, help me do certain things with the bit like social media, and figuring that out, and never giving up, and just knowing like, okay, I'm gonna find my stride. I'm gonna keep going. Something may come up, you know what I mean, and doing my research, and I think that's key. You will find those people, and it just and this is the other thing too. When you have a team, say you have a team now, I see this. You have a team now, and it was good, but it's not necessarily working anymore because you've gotten to know people on another level, and like you understanding like maybe this teamwork ain't working. I think people need to understand it's okay to like break out and try to find something better or move on from that, rather than trying to stick with it. Because you know what I mean, when you start now, I think with us, it was we all fit certain lanes, right? Yeah. And then we communicate often. Like we be just having like talk after we do this podcast every week, but we like stay after we talk about just life and really got to know each other on another level. And I think people that do, that's a part of it. And I think if you don't do that, you may get into a team that everybody you think has the right qualities, and then you get to know each other, and it's like, oh, it's not.
Well, you got to figure out how people communicate.
Exactly. That's
like DeAndrae and I, we don't communicate the same way at all.
Yeah.
Right? Like, one, I speak in code that only I really know a lot of the times. And a lot of the things, like, we don't really have time to discuss. Right? Yeah. So, like, when we come around, we're usually on a project, and it's like we're out in front of guests, like, hey, I haven't seen yada yada yada, right? But like, because like he has his kids, I got mine, what I mean? We're still trying to do the balance of family and business.
It's not. Definitely not.
It's not. And so it's like communication is really, man, communication just from how to accept criticism, how to be open to criticism, right? Like, that took a while for me, man. I'm an artist. Like, I'm sensitive about my stuff, as Erykah Badu used to say. And it is, it's like, it's when I explain, right? So one day, Carlos, he was like, just show me, like, what you have to do in order to put out a show. Because he was asking me, as he does, and he was asking me, so what are we going to do for this episode? How's it going to look? What is it going to be? And I was like, I don't know yet. And so you could see on his face, he was like, what do you mean you don't know yet? And I was like, well, I haven't sat down to look at it, and I don't really know what we need to do or need to cover up or need to do this or need to do that. So I started taking him through the process. And it was very much funny because for months on end, nobody has really asked what are the levels to post-production in a while, right? Because, I just go through these levels. And so communicating that curiosity and me being open to accept it instead of you don't know what you're doing. Oh, you want to know the process as we go through it. Here it is. Right. And so that was growth on my side, because I used to be like, man, if you want to learn, come on over and sit down. And I was at that point in my growth as APR.
And it's funny because when I asked you that, I was just like, because I grew up hearing like, the Jay-Z's and people like that talking about like, to actually win, you got to have your team winning with you. The people with you have to like you. So like that understanding of the group of people you're with, and it's not just like, it's bigger than that. So everybody got to eat basically. So like for me, I'm like, yo, let me find out how much work goes behind what he's doing. Like he getting better. So like I need to like, I want to not necessarily like learn how to do it so I just do it. It's more like, yo, let me understand the process. So like when I ask him to do something, I'm like, yo, that's very time consuming. I'm not just going to throw that on you. I'm going to give you some time, and then when I give you a response, I'm like, okay, in my head, I'm already thinking like, okay, I already know how much time and effort it's going to take. I'm going to give him a certain amount of time before, you know, I bring it to him or whatever. And that's what my thought process was when I was asking you that.
But that's just communication as part of a team, right? Because you got to coordinate the social media and all the other aspects, right? That like I no longer have to do. Like when we were starting off Mangrove, a lot of it that we found out, the reason why we don't call ourselves directors or photographers or videographers and we call ourselves producers is because we fill in the gaps for whatever anybody needs, right? And it's recognizing those gaps and filling those in that's as key. Needed.
And I remember like what you said with DeAndrae. I remember when we first started this podcast, you used to say like, yo, you need to like stop saying like a welcome, just start talking, right? And I remember, you know, you just kept drilling that into me. It's like, and I think it's all about being receptive to it. Like you giving me that feedback, because I could have easily came in here like, yo, this is my show. Like I want to do it some way. But for me, it's like I have a team so I can grow. Yeah. And,
we've
you know what I mean?
This
okay. So I got prime experience in here before I came. But for me, I was in a place like, you know what I mean? I talk about this a lot with my wife. Like I married my wife because she's a straight shooter. And for me, I need people to tell me what it is when they have to say it, so that I can learn from it. Because the next thing will be, oh, okay. And every time you kept saying it, we started having a conversation like how, like, and even asking you questions. Like I would slip up, asking them questions and putting them on the spot a certain way and learning through it. But like we would have the conversations off camera where DeAndrae wasn't afraid to communicate, you know what I mean, constructive feedback to me. And it was my part as a team knowing like, seeing the big picture. I seen us doing big things. I was like, okay, he's telling me something that I'm not seeing right now. So hopefully, you know what I mean, I can listen and I start seeing like the difference. And now like we started the show and I just start talking now. And I remember the first 6-7 episodes, I'm like, welcome to, you know what I mean? And it just wasn't as organic.
I wish you can. You might can, you never know. But like put that scene where like I'm sitting there before the camera, I'm like, don't start off answering me questions. So he does, and it's like for 3 seconds, I'm like,
and
it's like that meme where P. Diddy and the dude on the stage, and he's like, oh look at it, he's looking at it, we're sitting there like,
I swear that
because I remember,
I'm like, I'm pretty sure that could be a viral meme right there. That 5 seconds of pause.
Yeah, hopefully you can put it on like.
Because it was like you could just see him, he just looked.
And the crazy thing about that,
it kind of threw me off, and I was like, "Wait a minute!"
No, like, the crazy you had said like DeAndrae had dead
5 seconds
before the camera going. He's like, "Yo, don't ask me this or don't like come at me like this." And I don't know. I was in the zone of like, I need to just get this show on, and I just asked him the same thing he told me not to say. We
like literally the same question that we were just like already saying.
And in my head, like I'm like, damn, I fucked up.
But nah, I mean, I think about like my point I was trying to communicate was like, this is yours, right? And I didn't want you diverting your questions. Like you haven't, like, you know, I wanted you to establish yourself before you started asking other people's, you know. And so, and that's why, like, you know, once you just start having guests, that's just like, okay, he took it. You know what I mean? Like when you got so comfortable where you're bringing someone else on. You know what I mean? Then you got somebody else, or, you know, and you got, and then
that's the hardest thing. You even
got an episode of you just by yourself. You know what I mean? Just being able to go in the transition like that, man.
The key with that was like, because you kept saying like, it was like, yo, you need to own it. You need to own it. Like, this is your show. It should feel, and I think everything changed when you had told me, it was like, when you bring people on, it should still feel like your show and they're just coming on to talk with you. And I was like, oh, okay. Because usually when I hear podcasts or interviews, I watch a lot of interviews from celebrities. I just watch like, it's like question and then the person takes over and the guest is the main attraction. And him saying like, nah, the translated success, this is your brand. You're trying to put yourself out there so people know your work and your curriculum, this and that. So you need to take over. And I kept on saying that. So I kept on like practicing in my head. So like, I had to go to the drawing board. As you guys know, like I started doing outlines before a show. Like it was no freelancer. Like I'm all right. So I say CJM intro, okay, guest intro, and then like how we connect the two at the bottom, right? And I think it came from having someone on the team like DeAndrae, you know what I mean, to be able to do that. And I think like just having that openness to do that, you know what I mean, to like be aware that there's things that you don't see, you know what I mean, and have people around there that can call it out.
I think you can point it out, like, and kind of had to, and it was an open conversation I think we were having, and he was saying it's like he had to be comfortable with his weaknesses, and I had to, and I thought about that, and I was like, I always feared my weaknesses. I never wanted to expose them. I never wanted to deal with them. Like I didn't like had that feeling of I couldn't do something.
Yeah.
So when I really heard that and I started really thinking about that, I was like, once I got comfortable with what my weaknesses were, then I was able to understand where my strengths were, like more clearer. And so, and I'm thinking about like say, like when we had the conversations about lanes, right? It's probably the same conversation we had about the weaknesses and understanding them. You know, we also talk about like even like when things is tough and I'm like still going and still going.
Yeah.
I mean, that's me, right? Like Trey can do the sitting in front of something, 10,000 hours of learning something. That scares the crap out of me. Like, I'm dead, tired, exhausted sometimes. But I would still rather go from place to place than sit down and stare at a podcast for like hours on it. You know, and I mean, that's just the way I'm wired. Like, I gotta move. Like, I gotta do something. So yeah, like that day was fun. But yeah, by the time we got to the last show, I'm like, oh, we still got one more. You know, like, you know what I mean? Like, I tried to sneak a nap, like, in between, you know, from a radio show to this. I was late to the radio show. I was like, it was just mad. But it was still my lane. It was still comfortable for me, even if I was dog tired. And I'm pretty sure Trey's like, he might be half, you know, falling asleep editing, but it's still comfortable. That's still where, you know, he feels right. And so, and like he said, there's drawbacks from each one, right? Like I said, he spends a lot of time in here, so out there sometimes ain't his comfort zone. You know, for me, and he has to do it all the time, like, constantly, you know, even when, no matter how things are, I'm constantly trying to find the next thing, constantly move, trying to grow. He got to remind me sometimes of what I already done. You know, and I'm like, I forgot I did this. Because I'm always looking for the next. You know what I mean? I'm like, and I even have, you know, every now and then you got to stop and think. It's like, okay, well, actually have done quite a bit. And like, looking at how we, you know, started with Reasonable Doubt and that interview style. And that's what I came, and that matter of fact, I think he mentioned is, I tried to say in our first podcast, I tried to introduce that concept to that. We weren't having it. So that's when it was like, all right, we're going to do it on your own. You know, and then that's what kind of started, like me pitching the idea of saying, okay, I think we can get this bigger if we, you know, had a guest on and then like that. So, so like I said, then we went towards, you know, the sit down in which I had guests and then like that. So then we had Carl come in, and then Carl had his idea of doing guests, and then, and, you know, have your show come in, and now we're seeing, you know, guests come in. It's like, that whole blueprint, Jay-Z, interesting, right? That whole blueprint, you know, was like, dang, came from a suggestion, and now it's become like, kind of like the style of show that people are more interested in doing, because it makes sense. I mean, a lot of the people that we've met with these guests, we've made connections with, and even found other business with it. And so it's like, okay, you can have a 4-man podcast where all you do is have fun and joke and cool, but it's hard to gain attention when all you're doing is trying to entertain like everybody else is. But when you have a different person or a different topic and a different perspective, a different way to look at things, it's like, all right, you create more content. And this was, which in the beginning, like Trey said, this is what we were after. It was content. But it had to be a variation of content. We couldn't do the same thing every week. We couldn't talk about the same thing every day. We couldn't have the same format or the type of show or the type of content that we're even speaking about. And that's eventually what it ended up being. And so now it's like, okay, well, with bringing in different guests, which, helps grow the business, because you end up finding people like you stick around for 10 episodes. People like Carlos stick around for...
He's a lot of episodes now.
Right. Like, we're going from Mangrove to just, different things that different business opportunities that he's even brought, business that you brought, and future things that we already got coming up next year.
Yeah, we got things in the pipeline.
That's really the smartest way to grow your business and to last. Being what Trey always said, like the outlet. Not the plug.
We're not.
The outlet everybody gets a plug into. It's very rare,
I like that concept.
That's what we are. But, there's two unofficial mottos of APR. And it's like, we are the outlet. We're not the plug. Like, anybody can come over and experience what we do, right? Because we are providing that service for other people to grow. And the second one, and I said it random to DeAndrae, but it's kind of been, we remind each other of these things. Sometimes you gotta trust your own ideas, man. Sometimes, we smile right now.
I knew you were gonna say that, and I was like, okay, we have been
because we've said it because it was over a passing conversation, and I don't like doubt.
It wasn't passing conversation. It was one of the times where he was landing into me, and I had to sit there.
I don't like doubt. Right. Anybody who knows me knows that you can doubt a lot of stuff, right? But don't doubt yourself and don't doubt the team, right? Don't put doubt into a situation where it doesn't exist. Because that will defeat you before you even get started with the whole, you're paralyzed. Can I do this? Right? So I don't even like it. All right, you have a conversation with me and it starts getting to that point, it becomes very, very much to where like, all right, we're gonna have to change the conversation, because negativity can cloud a situation. It can blind you from what you're actually trying to accomplish. Doubt is your own fear and insecurities, right? Nobody ever wants to talk about being insecure or being afraid, but a lot of the times you have to. DeAndrae knows a lot of things that I talk about when we get somebody new is this, how long it takes before you can press record. Because everybody has to take something. Everybody has to get themselves to a point where it's okay and they're comfortable with themselves to record. Right? Even myself, I put on my never-ending story chain because I officially put on my APR hat, and now I'm that guy. Right? I'm the guy who wears the hat. Right? But it's like everybody has something. For me, before I used to have to go on stage as a musician, I used to have to paint my hair, my hands, and all the different things. I used to have people not be able to talk to me because I would get the bubbles and everything like that, because people don't talk about what stage fright really is, right? And stage fright is something that you can experience whether you're going up on stage, which is an unnatural position, elevated from everybody else, or just being in the crowd, right? Like I say, DeAndrae goes out there and does the outreach because I don't. Well, it's because I went out there before and I got mixed up with all the different things that go. And for me, seeing past all the smoke and mirrors that people put up, right? It's very, very hard for me to not be the camera anymore, right? And so when I see, I've seen y'all's faces as much as I've seen my own family's because I stare at y'all so often, right? I know what y'all did. So it's now having to transform myself into this guy who looks at lighting and blocking and things like that. Sometimes I just looking at people and I'm like, man, I know you're putting up a facade, and I feel sorry. I feel sorry, and I want to counsel them, and I want to like really talk to them truly about what they feel, and you can't do that all the time. You can't do that in business. You can't love every single person, even though you want to, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Like we went through that lesson where like I can't take on every single person's battles, right? You gotta, and that's another thing, having a partner, somebody just to explain to you, hey man, this is what you're doing, I see it, right? You gotta have that trust, right? And it's very, very hard, especially in this game, because it's very, very saturated, right? For sure. Everybody's doing everything. At one point in time, we were talking about doing music videos, but we don't even do my own music videos. And I have over 100 songs. So, like, are we really trying to do music videos? I think not. And are we over trying to be the best photographers? No, we don't really do all that. We're not really telling people to come over and take their picture. So it's like, what are we really doing? Well, what we're trying to be is a conduit for effective change, right? So like, we don't waste our airwaves. We don't upload any more things that we don't want to have up there to the end of time. That's what we did with season 4 of our stuff, is that like, we upload less because we don't show everything to everybody. Doesn't mean that we don't record. Doesn't mean that we're not getting better. We're not perfecting our craft. It's just every single time you see us well. And so like, where once you could see all the tests as they were happening, now you don't. Now you just see innovation. Yeah, sure. So, but part of that is just from growth, man. Just being open, because that fear paralyzed us a couple of times. Yeah. That fear made us little brother in a lot of deals, right? That fear of speaking up for yourself and your brand, like that will put you in a bad negotiating stance. These are things that, as a team, we learn, right? As a team, we confront it. Like, I talk about it all the time. The main introduction to our business is that you meet DeAndrae. DeAndrae tells you to come over and talk to us. And then we tell you, we can do exactly what you're going to do. And then it's like, some people, they trust us. Some people, they don't, right? It's up to you whether you want to go and be like, red pill, green pill, or red pill, blue pill in Matrix, whatever it was. But it's like, that's how it kind of is, right? It's like, do you want to go and take this journey? And as somebody who took that journey with us from DeAndrae's show, which is your introduction to a podcast for most people that come through the APR route, right? To now commanding your own stage, right? To where now you have a team behind you. We all seem to coordinate and get it all going. And we started off from a handshake and a hello. Right? But now we're a team because of communication, right? Coordination and understanding our values, right? Like, everybody has value to this relationship. And a lot of times, especially in the corporate world where I come from, value is overlooked, right? They say that people leave because of bad managers, bad jobs, and being undervalued, right? And you gotta show value, right? Like, I tell D all the time, man, you did this. You don't see this. You don't see the web, right? And when I'm over there, like, man, I'm making the same show again. And he goes, man, you don't see how you're doing the show better, how you changed the intro here, how it's tighter, how, like, you know what I mean? And it's like, you have to do that. You got to be open to that. Gotta be.
And I mean, I'm thankful for joining y'all. I know timing just worked out perfectly where you guys were at, where I was at, and trying to get to a place where, we're both going now. I think it's important that we talk about this. And I think what I was going to talk about next was how it's helped me in my personal life. And I think a lot to do with the work that I do already. I was just trying to align it in all aspects of my life. So this kind of helps, because after we get off the camera, like, we still talking about deep stuff, like what's really going on with us as men and what we're dealing with and how, like, stuff like that. And I think for me, not just practicing the craft, but just being more genuine was my thing. Just wanting to get to know people on a different level. And I know you dropped me off at the airport for an event a couple week ago, and we just talked and chopped it up on another level and got to know each other differently. And there's many times where I sit here and we just talk for a couple extra hours to like get to know each other on another level. And I think that's what life is about. And I think when you are building a team, that's a part of it that makes it last, I believe. Like cutting through the bullshit. Like, you know what I mean? No facade, no superhuman like type of shit you trying to put up like people don't see you. And just being allowed to be seen for who you are, and then being able to see people for who they are and accepting them. And I think that's what will make a team grow and build. And I'm grateful for having y'all, working with y'all, and where we going. We got a couple events coming up. I know we just doing a podcast now, but we got a couple projects we also going on to build and grow. And what I would tell, this is why I think it's important to have this conversation and taping it for the audience to see, so that it's more real to you. Like this can happen for everybody. Just putting yourself in position, saying, yes, I'll go. And when you go, being present and seeing the potential of what could actually happen. And then just learning along the way. You can become an editor, you know what I mean? You can be a podcast like host, or you can just be the connecting tissue to everything and building your stuff like that, and continuing to grow all the way. So like I said, we got a bunch of things happening. I'm thankful for you guys, and I'm thankful for y'all to continue to watch. This is episode, what is this? 14. Episode 14. We made it a 14, double digits. Wow. You know what I mean? We moving on up, man. So it's going well. Last, we have an event. Before that, what I think is important for you to do too, because you were saying a lot of people weren't, they were trying to buy time, right? You got to invest. Like, to be honest, investing in your team, and like I said, Jay-Z said it, everybody got to eat, right? Or it's going to crumble. So that's the main thing, invest in your team. And as we're growing, like I'm looking to like, you know what I mean? I know this APR has a bunch of stuff going on, like other things they got doing, but the more I grow, I want to make sure they eat, and then we could grow together. And like on January 31st, we have a huge event where I'm going to be presenting my curriculum. I'm headlining and headlining the event, keynoting, and then I'm doing demos for my curriculum in front of HISD, Houston Independent School District, administrators and teachers, so they can see the value in it. And my team will be videoing the whole thing and being there doing their thing. So we making moves. So let us be as an example. Hopefully, this episode you guys can get something out of, and it'll help you on building your team or your team to be in the future when you find them, and give you hope in that aspect. So thank you. I appreciate you guys. And I'll see y'all episode 15.
15.
15. Later.